I've got some bad news. There's an epidemic that's running rampant across organizations around the world as we speak, with no sign of letting up, leaving thousands and thousands of innocent people in its wake. And the worst part is, it might get to you too if it hasn't already. I'm talking about complacency, the plague of the 21st century. But I'd like to tell you a little story of how I've come to understand the cure for complacency. Back in 2014, my father had been diagnosed with cancer for the second time, and for those of us who have had loved ones faced with that situation, know the thoughts and feelings that come to mind. It was the case for me as well. Had a collision of thoughts and feelings. And there was two in particular that surfaced. The first one was a deep desire to want to do whatever it took to support my father in any way I could. Mind, body, soul, literally, figuratively, whatever it took to help him along his journey to recovery. And the second were more a series of questions, or complacency questions, like, can I do enough? Can I do more? When can I do more? How can I be more? So I had these thoughts racing around in my mind that night, and of course couldn't sleep, so I thought I'd read some leadership literature, which is usually a great cure for insomnia. And I came across a phrase, a statistic that jumped out at the page to me. And it said this: the number one fear among human beings is what? Can you guess? Public speaking? If you thought or said public speaking, you would be right. Second was what? Do you know what it is? Death. Death, I should say. And I thought to myself, given the context of that day, that statistic is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard in my entire life. I mean, I thought, how could that be? How could it be that we as humans are designed to stand and share ideas, and most of us would rather die than speak? And I thought, have we become that complacent as human beings? Have I become that complacent? And so I thought, I want to challenge this idea. And I've always admired people doing those fearless challenges for a good cause. And I thought, I wonder if I could do something like that to challenge my fears for a good cause. And of course, the internet took me to a page that I discovered that, in fact, said, world record, most speeches, 24 hours. And I thought, I'm thinking what you're probably thinking right now, and that is, there's an actual world record for that? In fact, there was, and it was set at 21 speeches in 24 hours. And there was, again, two thoughts that came to mind. One side, not the primary, said, are you kidding? The complacency side. Pump the brakes, Franco. You don't even think about it. If you're thinking you're going to try and attempt this world record for a good cause, you're crazy. Because the person who had the world record at the time is named Ralph Nader. Now, for those of you who don't know who Ralph Nader is, an esteemed long-time consumer advocate, politician, author, multi-time US presidential candidate, and you're Franco from a little town in Ontario, Canada, and the last time you did a speech was in 1985 at your elementary school. It's impossible, forget it. The other side of my brain, the more motivated side, had one word: perfect. So in that moment, I decided I'm going to do the impossible, basically go to the moon and back for my dad, to do something to help him along, to motivate him, and do something not quite as challenging as what he was facing, but something that was challenging and impossible for me. So over the next 2 years, I went through the process of constructive self-disruption. What I mean by that is identifying, zeroing in, heat-seeking on all of the complacencies that I had developed over time. The complacencies that had paved over all of the best parts of myself. And one by one, recognized, owned, and stepped past. Fast forward to April 2016. That fateful day, I delivered a record-breaking 23 speeches, 23 different speeches to 23 different audiences in 23 different locations in not only under 24 hours, but under 12 hours. So to put that into context, that's like delivering 2 different TED Talks an hour for 12 hours. And you know what? We raised a lot of money for cancer research, which was the primary goal. My father has since made a recovery thanks to the wonderful support staff that helped him along his way. And yeah, it's kind of cool to have that plaque on the wall that says world record. But what that really symbolizes to me is more of a testament to the power of not only my faith, but the mind. What you're capable of doing when you take your complacencies and actually set them aside and give yourself some space to improve in any and every way you can. And so I learned a wealth of ways on how to get past all of the complacencies that I had developed over time. Too many to share today. But there's one in particular I want to share with you, and it was a gift to me, and I want to share that with you today, and it's the cure for complacency. Now, you're thinking, cure for complacency, how is this an epidemic? Look, you don't have to look very far to realize that countless of studies show numerous organizations, leaders around the world constantly failing and are not keeping up with the ever-changing times that we live in. And to me, the primary problem is leaders breeding this idea of complacency. What that means is just stay good enough. Ignore change. Don't get any better. Stay where you are. Be happy with what you're doing. And those are recipes for disaster, especially when you want to keep up with the ever-changing and fast-paced world that we're living in today. So I want to share this cure with you so that you can go on and share that in your organizations as well. Now, you've got to be willing. So the question is, are you willing to learn something new today? Yes or no? Yes. All right, I know it's early. We're going to try that one more time. Are you really waiting and ready to learn something new today? Yes. All right, okay. I know it's early. I'm tongue-tied too. I get it. Okay, so there's one thing I'll ask of you in return. And it's this. It's very, very important before we begin the 3-step process of getting past complacency. The first is I want you to focus on something. So I'm going to ask you, wherever you are watching this, close your eyes. I won't be hypnotizing you, don't worry. Close your eyes. I want you to focus on the one aspect of your life or leadership that is paramount, that is the most important to you, that defines you, and how it's just falling short of where you really want it to be. I'm going to say that one more time. Think of the one aspect that's paramount in your life or leadership that is the most important to you, and then think about how it's just falling short of where you really want it to be. Okay, so if you got it, I'm going to call it your gem. So if you've got your gem, show me the gem symbol. Yeah, if you got it, open your eyes, show me your gems. All right, if you're all set, we're ready to go. We're ready to proceed to, thank you, ready to proceed to the cure for complacency. Are you ready? Yes. All right, are you ready? Yes. All right, here we go. Thank you. Step number 1 is to recognize. Repeat after me, recognize. Recognize. Recognize that in that gap between where you are and where you want to be is filled with complacency. Now, to drive this point home, I'm going to have to, use the F word. I've been avoiding it this whole time, and it's fear. Fear feeds complacency. So by recognizing that there is room to grow, you're already on your way to step number 2, which is own it. Name that fear. So you recognized the fear that's holding you back, holding your gem back from being where you really want it to be. And now it's time to own it. Now, most leaders, most complacent leaders, have a problem, and they make it everyone else's problem. Right? They don't take ownership. And the fearless leaders find their fears and make it their own. I'm going to tell you something that you probably never heard anyone ask you before, and that is embrace it. Really what you're doing there is when you're identifying or naming your fear, you are recognizing the boundaries from where you are and where you want to be. It's important to identify where those delineations are, because this brings us to step number 3, which was to act, right? Step beyond that delineation. Now, it sounds very, theoretical, but to put it in a practical sense, here's a great exercise for you to do when you're thinking about your gem, the one thing you want to make even better. Think about that gem that you identified earlier and ask yourself, what's my default? What's my default setting at? Am I set to complacent? Or am I set to bumping the needle just a little bit more? And I promise you do this for the most important aspects of your life, asking yourself this question on a regular basis, you'll want to do it for every other aspect of your life. You'll see real change. I've seen it in my life, and you don't have to believe what I'm saying. Doesn't make it right, doesn't make it wrong, doesn't make it true, doesn't make it false. All I can say is that if you take that chance in your life, you'll see miracles happen. Now, I want to leave you with one last thought. I'm going to paraphrase John Quincy Adams, who said, if your actions inspire others to do more, dream more, learn more, become more, then you're a leader. And I would add to that, then you are delivering the cure for complacency. Thank you.